It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Thursday, October 12th. Your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that can't believe the day has finally come. We have Flyers hockey tonight.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
We are going to preview tonight's matchup against the Columbus Blue Jackets and talk a little bit about individual player expectations, all on today's show.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello once again, and thank you for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on the app formerly known as Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here each and every weekday with Russ Cohen, who's on all your favorite social media apps at Sportsology. And as a show, we are at Locked On Flyers on Instagram, Twitter, Threads, and Blue Sky, pretty much everywhere out there. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get 200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit fanduel.com/locked on to get started. You can subscribe or follow us for free over on YouTube. We're on the SiriusXM app. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, subscribe to get our latest episode as soon as it's available here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Russ, it's game day, Flyers game day. Watched a few of the opening night games as well. Got a taste for it. Feel like there's definitely that difference between regular season hockey and preseason hockey. Like you can just tell.
Yeah, I think it was more noticeable in the second game. The first game wasn't all that well played, but the second game, I think we saw that. And if you stayed up for the late one, which I didn't stay up that late for, I watched some of it, there was definitely a difference.
No, there was definitely the Connor Bedard hype train going, though, for the Chicago game for sure. But turning to the Flyers, they did not really change much around at practice yesterday with those same lines that we talked about yesterday, assuming Tyson Forster will sit. So it's looking like pretty solid that that's what's happening.
Yeah, Forster's going to sit. And then I still think this will be a veteran-laden lineup. I think in the end, Risto will play, and that means Andre and Zamula probably sit.
Yeah, that's what I wonder. If Ristolainen does check in on the blue line, they probably give him fewer minutes if he's a little banged up
Yeah.
still. And so would they put him on that third pairing with Nick Seeler?
Yeah, they might, just to do it that way. I think that makes sense. And then it's just a matter of, are they going to, send Felix Sandstrom down or do something else creative? We'll see.
Yeah, they'll have to do something, but
Right.
we probably won't know until closer to game time. And I think that, looking at this lineup the way it is, I think if you're going to put all those guys in, that's pretty much the best you got here. Although I'm not I think the centers are pretty solid that we have going here.
I mean, I'd say there's an improvement at center compared to last year because Couturier on faceoffs is good. Paling's probably even a fourth line upgrade at center. So yeah, they're better off at center.
Yeah, I think so. I do think that I still don't like these D pairings entirely with York, Sanheim, and Stahl with Walker. I just feel like Stahl with Walker is this black hole that's going to be a real problem.
Yeah, I mean, how many minutes are you going to give him? Are you really going to match him up against, I don't know, let's say Fantilli?
Ivan Provorov?
Yeah, I'm looking really at the fast forwards. Who are you going to match him up against? And, they got three good lines. Three really good lines.
They do. We'll get into more of that a little bit later. I think that one of the big factors this season that we've talked about, and we talked about on yesterday's show, was special teams and the power play specifically. And They could switch some stuff around here, but looking at the power play units that they've put together in practice, there's like one key factor here that we talked about that's a difference from what I would do. And so right now their top unit is Couturier, Atkinson, Brink, Konechny, and York. And I like the boldness of putting Bobby Brink on that top unit. I think that it allows him to shine in a lot of ways, being on that top unit and having a lot of support around him. I will say that Joel Farabee, who's on the second unit, I really would have liked to see on that top unit with Couturier and Atkinson, because I think that's where he could really turn up the scoring a notch.
Yeah, I mean, if you want your maximum um, talent, then that's what you would do. I mean, I get it that you like Brink, but it doesn't make sense to put him on the top power play there. It makes zero sense.
Yeah, so if you have that second unit that's Frost, Tippett, Farabee, Cates, and Sanheim, like I feel like Tippett provides that little extra kick there,
Yeah.
on that unit, with Frost kind of being the center of it,
Mhm.
literally, but figuratively too, I think, in terms of kind of running it. Travis Sanheim, as we know, has had some mixed results on the power play over his career, and to be on a power play unit where he's the only defenseman, I think is going to be a little challenge
That is a
for
little
him.
challenging for him. That's a lot of responsibility. And again, we'll see if he's up to it.
Yeah, and we talked about, yesterday, and several days about Travis Sanheim. This is a big year for him. And so to really have ownership of an entire power play unit, even if it is the second unit, it is a real big change for him.
It is. And, we have to remember that if John starts hating the top power play, they'll put the second one out first. They don't hesitate in doing that. And then all of a sudden he's your top power play guy. And yeah, he's got to be ready for that because again, they're going to have players on their penalty kill that could score.
Right. Right, because that's like the originators of the power kill is Columbus, and
Yeah,
so even though we have Brad Shaw coaching the Flyers, like,
they
I
still do it.
it's they still do it, and so if your 2 power play quarterbacks are Cam York, who ostensibly that's like one of his specialties, so I think it's good that he's doing it and
Hmm.
he's gonna get the quality time, because that's one of the reasons why they drafted him.
Right.
But Cam York, who's still relatively new to the league, and Travis Sanheim, who struggled, I think that is going to pose some interesting situations for the Flyers on the power play. Like, are they going to be able to have the support that they need in order to get the puck movement going, to get quality scoring chances, right?
We're going to find out.
We will. I want to mention one more thing before we turn our attention to the Columbus Blue Jackets. We haven't talked about it on the show quite yet, but it did come up with the NHL deciding to just ban any outward representation of special groups related to the specialty nights the teams have. And you know, last year, obviously, we know what happened with Ivan Provorov, and that was kind of the precipitating incident, which led to really just some difficult times in around the league. And Scott Lawton, who sort of led the Pride Night initiatives for the Flyers and the players, has said that he's gonna probably wear the Pride tape on Flyers Pride Night this season anyway, even if it's sort of against the rules according to the NHL. And I'm just so happy to hear him say that, as I think it's something that's very important. And also, I think that it's just like ludicrous what the NHL has done. It's throwing the baby out with the bathwater, where you're saying, okay, let's make it optional. Fine. That's fine. If somebody doesn't want to wear it, that's, their choice. But to then say nobody can, that is a step too far. And it's just taking the league backwards in just so many ways. And I'm very happy that he and so many other people around the league have stepped up to say so.
Yeah, I'm really happy with Lawton. He was the real leader when things broke down with Provorov last year, and really kept things going. And I'm sure people in that community really appreciated it. They're going to appreciate it again. They're going to appreciate the other players doing their thing, and I appreciate them.
Yeah, and, it's not just Scott Lawton, and,
No,
Connor McDavid has said
yeah,
something about it too,
which
that
is
it's just
great because a lot
yeah.
of times McDavid doesn't like to speak up about things. It's great that he did.
Yeah, I think so. It just like to not even allow anybody to show any support for any community that's being represented with a specialty night is just I just don't the NHL sometimes, man. If they can somehow find the wrong thing to do almost every
Yeah.
time. But good thing we love the sport and have a game to talk about, and we are going to do that coming up next.
Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit fanduel.com/locked on and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
We will, of course, have our full take on tonight's game versus Columbus on tomorrow's show. Plus, we will be previewing the weekend matchup against Ottawa. Turning our attention to those Columbus Blue Jackets, we did do a crossover with our friends over at Locked On Columbus Blue Jackets. Maybe a month ago, but so much has changed with
Yeah.
Columbus since then. Mike Babcock was, his hiring was the big story of the summer for them, in addition to them drafting Adam Fantilli. And Mike Babcock is, of course, no longer with the team. And they mutually decided to part ways after an incident that made some players uncomfortable. So Pascal Vincent, who was an assistant coach, took over as head coach of the team. And it's really interesting to me because he was passed over twice for the job. First, when Brad Larson was hired, and
Mhm.
then when Mike Babcock himself was hired. And it just feels like if you look at Pascal Vincent's career, like he should have gotten to this point already. And the fact that he got passed over twice by for Columbus for this job, and it took this crazy thing with Mike Babcock to get him the job that he probably deserved in the first place. Like, I don't even know, man.
Yeah, I'm without words as far as that goes, but I'm happy, and the fact that he knows Line 8 from when he was an assistant in Winnipeg is
Yep.
a big deal.
Yeah, I think that is absolutely a huge deal, and he did spend a lot of time in the Winnipeg organization,
Yeah.
gained a lot of valuable experience, spent a lot of time in the queue as well, and so, this is a guy who is very eager to prove himself and put his mark on the NHL, especially having been passed over several times for other, head coaching jobs as well. Talking about Patrick Laine, one of the more interesting things that Pascal Vincent has done is move Patrick Laine to center, and so he's centering a line with Sillinger and Johnny Gaudreau.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know how that's going to go. I mean, Cole Sillinger as a wing, I've seen that, and he's very good, and so that's probably the better move there. But I don't know if Line 8 can handle center. We'll see. Maybe that'll give the Flyers a little bit of an edge. But that line's a killer line. Like that. Good luck defending that line.
I know it's really like interesting that having Line at center there allows you to move a guy like Sillinger into that wing spot, and it just makes it better. So you almost have like three wings playing together that are all pretty potent offensively.
Yeah, but again, Sillinger plays a really strong two-way game. He does, and I've seen him do it. So I think he's going to be the guy that will help out. And Goudreau does a little bit on defense.
Right. And then that makes their second line, still centered by Boone Jenner, and I think they just weren't comfortable moving him up to that
Right.
1C position, but that's still, if you have, Bernstrom and Taxier in that second line, that's 2 really strong lines there.
It's two really strong lines for speed and skill. Although Benstrom hasn't really come through the way that I know Jarmo Kekalainen was very high on him. He spoke highly about him to me. Um, he hasn't really quite broken through yet. And you're sitting Kent Johnson. Like, does this make any sense on any level? Not to me, it doesn't.
Yeah, that is an interesting part of it that Liam Foudy and Kent Johnson are sitting in this one. Foudy, I get to some degree, he's a little bit more borderline, but Kent Johnson is like one of their top prospects.
Yeah, I mean, Ken Johnson could be one of the 3, 4 best players. Foodie never really came through offensively like he was supposed to, but he's still a pretty good player. But like you said, that's fine. I get that, but I don't get that with Johnson. Makes no sense. But again, could help the Flyers because that's one less skill guy out.
Right. So then their 3C is Fantilli, which that's going to be a tough assignment for
Will
the
he even
Flyers
be
third
3C
line.
by the end of the game? Who knows? Like, you never know how this game's going to go. I've seen Fantilli just be great out of the gate. I've seen him sort of hide in the weeds and get game-winning goals because he's a clutch player, but he's hard to cover, and he plays at full speed. And so this is a big-time matchup nightmare for the Flyers, especially if he plays at 3C, because then I want to see what pairing you're putting out against them.
Yeah, that'll be real like a huge challenge for the Flyers because with that top line the way it is, like if you theoretically only have one super strong defense pairing, and I say super strong relative
For
to the
them.
other ones,
Yeah, yeah.
right, for them, not relative to the league, but then you're kind of stuck, right? So if you
Mhm.
have Line and Goudreau out on one shift and Fantilli out, even say the next shift, like how do you make that work defensively as the Flyers, right?
Yeah, I think that's a massive challenge. We'll see. I mean, this is where their defense is going to get challenged because, again, all good things to those veterans who were signed by the Flyers. I have nothing against them, but when you're playing a faster team, just because you want to pay homage to the vets because they're the vets, it's not a good enough reason to have them all in. It's just not because this is a fast Blue Jackets team, and your defense is not as fast with the guys you have in there. It's just not.
Right, and you wanna put your team in the best position to win, and you have to look at the competition, you can't
Yes.
just look at who you wanna put out there. Like,
Right.
I think you can do that more if it's a home game because
Yes.
you have the benefit of last
Yeah, you have
change.
the last change. You have a little bit of, pull there.
Right, but on the
For
road, I
sure.
think that's a real, interesting tactic, let's say.
I mean, this is
Uh,
just again with Torts just kind of like, hey, I'm doing it my way. I know you're looking at this and you're gonna say it doesn't work. I don't really care what you say. I'm gonna do it anyhow. Like that's just the way it is. And he figures he'll do it in Columbus because again, why not? Why not try and prove Columbus wrong? I mean, that's really I don't know. A lot of this doesn't make sense to me, but what do I know?
Remember, we are giving him a clean slate, we talked about
Eh,
this
as clean
yesterday.
as I can give it to him, Rachel. You could do better. You be better, I
Alright.
won't.
Looking at the Columbus blue line, again, it's still not a strong blue line overall
No.
relative to the league that Columbus has, but it's certainly stronger than the Flyers, I would say. They have Zach Werenski on their top pairing, Ivan Provorov in their second pairing, which I think will do him a lot better than what he was forced to do with the Flyers. And while he won't get probably the number of minutes that he's used to, overall, it'll probably go down a little bit. I think that puts him in a better position to succeed. And that's going to be tough for the Flyers offensively.
Yeah, Werenski's a force of nature.
Yep.
Missed a lot of games last year. The Flyers better be ready to block a lot of shots because he's going to take a lot of shots. The peak's actually on, from what we hear, on the trading block, but right now he's in the lineup. Provorov is going to have a good game. I have no doubts that
Yep.
he has an axe to grind and will have a good game. David Severson knows the Flyers, so there's no real change for David Severson. Stays in the division, and he's a pretty good player. And Erica Branson blocks everything and is physical. So, he's their Mark Stahl, and he's a little bit more mobile than Mark Stahl. Jake Bean someday may break through offensively. If he doesn't, he's still a really good puck mover. So this is still a faster blue line than what the Flyers have, and they do have more guys that could put the puck in the net. So, like
Yeah.
the overall scoring potential of Columbus is greater. So with the Flyers, what is your end game here? You're not going to try and outscore them. So my guess is they're going to try and take away time and space and going to have to block a ton of shots.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really where we're headed. Of course, Columbus has Elvis Merzlikins in net, and that he's always tough
Yeah,
competition.
he's a good
Uh,
goalie.
so I think it's going to be really tough for the Flyers to score in this game, and so they are going to have to just emphasize that defensive game, like you said, blocking shots. I think that they're
And
going to
take
have
dumb
to win.
penalties.
Don't take dumb penalties, and
This
they're
is a
going to
good
have
power
to.
play, man. You're talking about Line, Goudreau, Fantilli, whether he's on the first or the second. You know, Werenski's back. This is a good power play.
Yep, and they're gonna have to win every single defensive zone faceoff that they possibly can. I
Yes.
think that's gonna be a huge part of this game as well.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is the Metro Division's tough. It's tough because Columbus may not have any chance at the playoffs, but yet they have a lot of talent on the roster.
Yep, they absolutely do. All right, well, we'll see how it goes tonight. In the meantime, while we've been looking at sort of goals for the Flyers overall, we're gonna dig into expectations for individual players and who we think has the most riding on their shoulders this season coming up next. The NHL season is finally here, and as we just talked about, the Flyers begin their 82 games tonight. I, of course, love the NHL. I know you do too, and that's why I want to tell you about Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is my go-to platform for daily fantasy sports, especially daily fantasy hockey. With Sleeper, you have the chance to win 100 times your cash on daily fantasy. The NHL has never been more exciting than it is now. We've got Connor McDavid, Alex Ovechkin chasing that goals record. Of course, Connor Bedard, like we talked about, or our favorite Flyers like Sean Couturier and Travis Konechny. You can select more or less based on their stats like goals, assists, points, saves, and more. Sleeper offers 100 times payout. So start paying attention. If you make the right picks, you could win big. Use the promo code Locked On NHL and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's Locked On NHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. So, Russ, I was thinking about the Flyers, so individually and collectively, and who do you think has the most pressure on them this season to succeed?
Joel Farabee. Yeah,
Yeah.
because he has that long-term deal and his output is pretty much just slightly better than Scott Lawton, about the same, and it's expected to be a lot more. Even post-injury, it's expected to be more. So, if he can't put up 25 goals this year, they're going to start looking at him and saying, what is Joel Farabee now? Because all of a
Right.
sudden, he's not recovered or playing where we think he should be post-injury. And that's the thing. If all of a sudden post-injury Joel Farabee is the same as last year, which is a decent player, but not what you signed up for, then you have to start really thinking about how to use him and what is his role going to be.
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. Um, I would probably put Travis Sanheim and Owen Tippett as ties,
Yeah,
maybe for the next highest expectations. I think, of course, again, similarly to Joel Farabee, Travis Sanheim has this contract that just kicked in. He is taking on a lot more responsibility defensively and offensively for the blue line. Without Ivan Provorov there, he's going to have to be one of the leaders of this blue line and really show it on the ice and off. And I think he's got a lot on his shoulders. And then at the same time, Owen Tippett really has to continue where he left off from last season, and get even more points on the board because we're missing some scoring here. And he's, in theory, one of the guys that's supposed to provide it, right?
yeah, he might be your top goal scorer if he continues from last year. But if it turns out last year is a career year, then you have to sort of recalculate things too. So yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, I've been trying to think about Owen Tippett just from a scoring perspective. You know, he was just shy of that 50 points last season, 27 goals and 22 assists. And you have to think he has to try and get above that 30 goal mark this year. And hopefully he's in the 60 to 65 point range, I would say.
Yeah, I don't know if he's getting 65 points. I would settle for 60. And I don't know if he's getting 30 only because there were games towards the end of the year. He was playing over 20 minutes a game. Like, is
That
he
is
really,
true.
is he going to get that kind of ice time this year? I don't think so. So that's the other thing is so if you take away that little bit of ice time, then he has to hit the net with more shots, right? Because that's the way he's going to score more goals. So we'll see. I mean, I think inherently that's his battle.
Right. I think it'll also depend on how much of that power play time he gets,
Yeah,
right?
because if he's on
Because
second power play, again, last year he was on first power play, and that helps getting those goals. Yeah, if he's on second power play, that could have a drop just because of that.
right, I think so as well. And then I would probably say Morgan Frost is next, just because Morgan Frost always has a lot of pressure on him. For
Yeah, it's almost unfounded, but he's going to be
yeah,
there because yes, people think that he's going to be this 75-point guy, and they have to give that up. He's not going to be, but he could be a 60-point guy, and I think that's if he does everything else well, and he makes some other players around him better, I could live with that. That's fine. So yeah, he's that next guy. It's just inevitable.
right. Now I know who I would put next on the list, but do you have anybody that you would interject?
Yeah, I would put Cam York next on the list because I need to see goal scoring coming from him. Uh, because if he's going to get top power play and he's going to be at the point, he's going to have to score some goals. Like, there's just no way around it. And I would like to see double digit goals out of him.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that's going to be really key about this season and with John Tortorella is not pulling the plug on him too quickly with
Right.
the power play unit time. I think that if Tortorella does that, that's going to throw a wrench into Cam
I don't
York's
think he
game.
has
I
the
think
guys, the manpower to do it because he would have to call up either Adder or Andre really to do it. He doesn't have enough players there that could actually fill the role because I'm not sure Sandheim can fill the role. You know what I mean? So he doesn't have any natural guy he can do. He can call Victor Mete. Mete can run a power play too. So that's what I mean. All the guys who could really do it are down below.
right. So I really think he just has to like stick with him through it and let
Yeah.
him work at it if he's running into any
Yeah.
problems. I would add Noah Cates to my list just because
Mhm.
I feel like there will be some increased expectations for scoring this season for him.
I mean, again, I don't know what's unrealistic here. I mean, he played two different roles in college. When he played an offensive role, he had 33 points in 34 games. Then he was asked to sort of play the shutdown role, and then he was sort of like in the middle his last year as a senior. Uh, Now he's sort of in that. Yeah, you got to play defensive role to some degree, but they want to get more offense out of him. I don't know if he could hit 50 points. I'll just be honest because, that's the thing where he hasn't really done it. He did it in the USHL, but this isn't the
Right.
USHL. And so, based on his line mates, I don't know if he's going to have enough juice to be able to do it on the third line. That's really, if he's playing with Lawton, maybe there'll be enough opportunity there. But even Lawton is limited at times. His offense came out more last year, no doubt. But it's not like he's a
Yeah.
high
Well,
powered offensive
y-
player.
right. Lawton and Konechny, when they hooked up, that's when Lawton
Yes.
really shown the most. But
You're
yeah,
right.
with Cates, I think your point is a good one. I just think the expectations are still there, regardless if he's being put in the
I
situation
know. It's just like
to
you
be
have
able to
to
be
look at, like,
successful.
situationally, it's like, well, what can he really do? Like, as a 2C, you definitely have a lot more opportunity. As a 3C, you're starting to, limit the opportunity, especially when you have a coach that wants to play the fourth line as much as he does.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, we'll find out how the season goes starting tonight, of course, on our Friday show. Like I said, we'll be recapping tonight's game versus Columbus, plus talking about the weekend matchup against Claude Giroux and the Ottawa Senators. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. You can send in your mailbag questions via Twitter at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail or comment over on our YouTube channel. I am Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Have a great hockey day, everyone.